Are carriers spying on users? Can government cell phones be made secure? I'm David Gewirtz. Joining me is T-Mobile VP Frank Sickinger, who will help us get to the bottom of these questions and more. Hey everybody, today we have Frank Sickinger of T-Mobile, who I'm going to bring on the screen now. Hey Frank, how are you?
Hi David, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks for coming on board. I know we've had some prep time here and a little bit of time to get ourselves together. A lot has been going on in the past week or two, and there's a lot of news, and you are going to tell us about government stuff as well, which is going to be interesting. But as you know, I'm going to need to cover some of the news questions because there's just been so much going on, and the timing of this is just so perfect for that. So I'm going to start off. I've got a bunch of questions from the ZDNet editors who've asked me to pass along a few of them for you, and I'm just going to work our way through these questions. Let's have some fun with it, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so let's start with the obvious question. Everybody is up in arms with this carrier IQ issue, where carriers are loading this sort of spying software on everybody's phones. I know T-Mobile issued a statement confirming carrier IQ on your phones. Can you tell us about it? Readers are pretty upset.
Sure. I would want to share with the viewers out there that where carrier IQ is concerned, we do utilize carrier IQ as a diagnostic tool, but we use it to troubleshoot device and network performance, with our objective being to enhance network reliability as well as end customer experience. What T-Mobile is not using the tool for is to obtain any content of text, voice messages, emails, or even we're not looking at the destinations of customers' internet activity, and the tool is in no way used for marketing purposes. It really centers in on enhancing network reliability and customer experience.
So let me understand this for a second here. Everybody's very concerned about it. Are other carriers doing things of a nefarious nature, or is all of this diagnostics, is it all sort of overblown and people are just freaking out?
Well, I can't speak to what other carriers are doing because I'm, not a subject matter expert on how they're using the tool. What I can tell you is that there's considerable work and consideration of the privacy of our customers. So, we look at it again, really centering in on network reliability, and that can be things like, call completion rates, ability to maintain calls, what coverage looks like, but again, purposefully only utilizing the Carrier IQ platform to enhance customer experience, in no way to go in and view personal or inappropriate information.
So you're telling me you really don't want to know I had a really, really bad burger at Denny's last night?
Yeah, we want to leave people's dining experiences as well as their communications with friends, colleagues, businesses, whatever that is. We're definitely not delving into that content in any way, but we do very much care about providing quality network experience out to each of our customers.
Oh my God, my wife and I keep saying, let's never do that again. It's just special. All right, well, we're on hot button topics. Let's hit the whole AT&T merger thing. What's the story?
Sure. Lots and lots of information out in the press. What I would tell you is, from a T-Mobile perspective, we're not focusing on the what ifs. Rather, we remain focused on driving business and seeing again that we're delighting our customers and driving the right experiences for them. We do believe that the merger will bring both a better network out there, access to a stronger network for customers out in the marketplace. And we also are able to provide assurances to our customers that all terms of the agreements that they have in place with T-Mobile in the event of the acquisition will absolutely be adhered to by AT&T as the acquiring party. So T-Mobile customers out there should have no concerns about the terms of their agreements, because those will be upheld absolutely.
So is this thing still in play then?
I would say it absolutely is. If you look from a T-Mobile, is from a DT perspective, from an AT&T perspective, we believe that it is the right merger to happen, or acquisition for AT&T, and the teams remain squarely focused on making it happen.
So for those people who truly like the T-Mobile service and truly dislike the AT&T service, is AT&T going to get better, or is T-Mobile going to get worse?
Yeah, my own perspective on this is that we go and work each and every day in order to deliver the right experiences for our customers. Of course, I can't speak for what customer experiences will be for those out there in the marketplace. After an acquisition, I can tell you that that both companies spend a considerable amount of time focusing in on the customers and driving the right satisfaction levels. Also, very much believe that the merging of the two networks and the assets there will bring very, very solid user experience for customers, be they government customers, private sector customers, consumer customers out in the markets that are served.
Awesome. Well, Frank, you have passed with flying colors the uncomfortable question. From now on, it's the fun stuff.
Okay.
So, speaking of the fun stuff, because you've been such a good sport, why don't you tell us about yourself? Give us your background.
Sure. I've been with T-Mobile since September of 2003 in different sales, leadership, and operations roles. I've been responsible for the federal government here for just about a year, but have worked closely and known members of the team there for some time. So I have responsibility today for federal government sales and P&L, as well as for our multinational corporation sales groups within T-Mobile, and work closely with Deutsche Telekom on that side, or on those efforts.
Wow. You can sing Justin Bieber's Baby, can you?
We don't want me to do that here today. It would scare those out in the audience.
Oh my God! I mean, I have a pretty good affinity for Michael Franti and Spearhead or the Dirty Dozen Brass Band, but man, I don't even think I've heard that. But I don't have twin daughters. I mean, you can handle it, can't you?
Twin daughters really do condition us for some surprising things along the way. By the way, I did see the Dirty Dozen Brass Band in San Francisco here a few months ago, which was a great show.
It's awesome. All right, so let's go. Let's talk about a few other things here and switch back to us this way. There we go. So you've got a really broad portfolio of responsibilities, but today we want to focus on government. Where's T-Mobile fit in the federal government communication strategy?
Sure. So, today T-Mobile serves in the U.S. about 4 million customers that are business customers and government customers. So it's a considerable segment that many folks maybe out there don't realize that we have a sizable base there. And if you look in at the federal government specifically, we have been working with GSA for just about 10 years. In the U.S., we have contracts and considerable business with the Department of Defense, as well as with other agencies and departments within the federal government. So quite a bit of federal government liable business, as well as federal government employees that we support out there. And it's certainly a segment that we're proud to serve.
So now in our sort of pre-show, you mentioned that security measures don't stop at the device. While that's obvious to some extent, where can your networks add security value? How is the security component offered by T-Mobile, for example, better or more effective than that offered by Sprint or Verizon or even AT&T?
Sure. Well, I would say that some of the solutions out in the marketplace are common among different carriers. So, and that's to say that if you look at in the federal government space today, servers or users out there, the primary platform is Research in Motion, BlackBerry, that's out there. So you have all that inherent security that comes with BlackBerry. And then, what we're seeing much more of are users that are bringing other device, other OS into the environments. And we can talk about that in some detail. But, whether that's Android, whether that's Windows, whether that's iOS, lots of other devices coming into play, and we've brought services to suit those customers. So those are things like good technologies where we provide secure email, good secure messaging out to our customers today, which you're probably familiar with, David. Those have been approved for use within specific government departments now. So that's one that we're excited about. T-Mobile also offers pretty unique service in the American marketplace, is unique among carriers, which is our ability to offer Wi-Fi calling. And that's, again, very secure service where IPsec VPN tunnel is used for that Wi-Fi voice traffic. And that solution is great because it affords coverage in areas where traditional network might not. It can also be deployed quickly in areas where maybe a macro, traditional wireless coverage couldn't be afforded in a timely manner. So that's, again, unique technology that for us on many devices, whether they're BlackBerry or Android, comes off the shelf or out of the box on those devices.
Let's swing back in on that Wi-Fi calling, because that kind of breaks the paradigm in my head of what a T-Mobile is doing, because I always think of T-Mobile as the wider area network and Wi-Fi as the local stuff. So how does that really fit in? How does it work? Why is it part of the T-Mobile offering as opposed to something that we throw on a Cisco router or something?
Sure. Well, we realized a few years ago that given there are areas out there in the country where whether it's in-building coverage or whether it's a house that's in a neighborhood where a cell tower can't be readily put up, that there were many customers out there that would benefit from the Wi-Fi calling technology. So T-Mobile really was a pioneer in the space. It was also very important for us for both our enterprise business customers as well as our federal government customers, in that we wanted to help them achieve ways to reduce their international roaming costs. And another benefit of Wi-Fi calling is that when a user is overseas but using Wi-Fi as the means of access, those calls back to the U.S. are actually treated as local calls or domestic calls. So roaming is avoided altogether. And then if a user is roaming internationally, say a user is in Paris, but they're going to be in London 2 days later and they're wanting to call colleagues that they'll be meeting with, those calls that are made on Wi-Fi from one country to another or even in country while internationally roaming are treated as international long distance calls rather than international roaming calls. So there's a very strong cost containment benefit, certainly, as well as the expansion of coverage to areas that wouldn't be covered by traditional wireless network.
So are you putting in Wi-Fi towers?
We do not put in Wi-Fi towers. We have access points that we've offered. We also work closely with government entities as well as with enterprise customers that already have Wi-Fi networks in place to work to help them optimize the networks that they have in place or to augment them in order to readily carry and support quality voice communications via those Wi-Fi networks.
Are we talking about femtocells here?
No, we're talking about Wi-Fi specifically. So this, if you look at, there are three technologies that T-Mobile has deployed that are each used for Wi-Fi calling. One is called UMA, or Unlicensed Mobile Access, which again is deployed on the devices. There's a second generation of service, and they all, to the end user, the experience is really consistent. There's a second technology called GAN Lite, which we really debuted and brought forward for Android devices, and then we have new devices now, kind of our third generation of Wi-Fi enabled devices that are coming out that use SIP in order to make those calls happen. But it's it's definitely distinct from femtocell. It's using traditional wireless, and then it's again it's a VoIP solution with the IPsec traffic through a VPN tunnel. So it's very secure. But again, the nice thing about it is it comes out of the box, ready to use, uses traditional Wi-Fi in a secure manner, and then also, if configured correctly, it's very low overhead, typically about 50K. But if we can work with customers to make sure that the right QoS is in place and that it serves customers very well.
Cool, pretty neat. Okay, so let's see. I got another question from another one of our editors. As consumers, we're all familiar with the various carriers, which are all almost universally hated for their nasty policies and relatively poor customer service. T-Mobile
Uh-oh.
stands out because it seems to generate less bile than the others. How do you as a carrier differentiate yourself to both consumers and then in terms of performance to the federal government?
Sure. Well, I would say that T-Mobile, part of our kind of core DNA is that, we're a challenger. And by that, I mean, I almost compare it to Avis and the old "we try harder" slogan. And that is that we care deeply about qualifying opportunities correctly up front to be sure that we distance ourselves from, pieces of potential business that we wouldn't serve well. So in other words, we look in very, very carefully, qualify, make sure that we're going to be the right fit for that need. We will disqualify ourselves if we're not. But again, if we look in the federal government space, we are very, very well equipped to service the marketplace. We also really structure our sales force and our account management organizations and our care efforts to see that we are working to our objective, which is really to be a service leader, where we can be viewed as really heads above other carriers in terms of what that follow-up looks like, what that overall customer care, what that overall support experience looks like.
Cool. All right. So now the last one of these I did was with Dell, and we talked about hardening Android. They were looking at how to put handsets into the military battle space. Is T-Mobile involved in that? How do public carriers fit when it comes to very secure and ultra-secure wireless communications?
Sure. It's a great question. So if you look at, some of the theaters that are out there, some of, there are times when there is traditional network that's available. Oftentimes there is not, and that is the military, going in and setting up network. Positive with T-Mobile devices, if you look at most of our devices, they're in fact multi-band, so they cover 850, they cover 1900, they cover 1700, 2100, just depending on the handset. And then they also again have Wi-Fi capabilities for both data and voice. So where there are needs, we work with the federal government to see that we really understand what those are and that we're recommending the right devices for what those needs would be. But also knowing that T-Mobile doesn't own network or operate network in many places where federal government employees may find themselves. But at the same time, it's our responsibility to make sure that we're really showing up with the right solutions and making sure that everyone is in the know. And security on Android devices is really an evolving segment within the marketplace also.
Now, T-Mobile is owned by Deutsche Telekom, is that right?
That's right.
So that's a German company.
Correct.
So is there an issue with a German company carrying federal government communications from the United States federal government?
There's not. So T-Mobile today, operates as an independent entity, although it's wholly owned by Deutsche Telekom. But we absolutely provide service to in highly sensitive situations to intelligence agencies and to DoD, and have met all those hurdles. I would also offer that overseas, if you look at Deutsche Telekom in Europe, for example, we also provide services, local service that's activated and supported in local markets to U.S. federal government entities overseas as well.
So how do you essentially prove to, let's say, the spook agencies that they can trust that their stuff isn't going to go to the parent company in any way, shape, or form?
Well, there's a whole series of different criteria that the federal government has, some of which, I can't disclose. But what I would share is that we've never failed to meet any one of the security requirements and that have been put to us by any federal government agency or entity.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to a different topic. I understand you've done a lot of work in first responder communications, and you've been working to maintain contact during natural disasters. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So we have an offering called Persistent Communication, which really affords our customers, be they federal government, enterprise customers, local and municipal government, the ability to utilize Wi-Fi, where Wi-Fi can be set up and linked to satellite and provide ready communications in areas where a traditional network is not available, either by virtue that it wasn't available before a natural disaster, or that it was taken out of being dependable or not working after a natural disaster or any type of event where there is the need to come in and provide emergency wireless services. And again, that's really that we're able to do that as a function of the fact that we have Wi-Fi voice readily available on the devices.
Cool. I have coffee. Which is not to say anything about how interesting you are. You're actually really fascinating. It's just I need coffee. It's a survival technique.
I won't hold it against you for staying caffeinated with me, David.
Absolutely. All right. So when putting devices into a government application, there are a lot of players, from device makers to app makers to the carrier, and each has a role in security as well as manageability. Where does T-Mobile fit in, and what do you do to make sure our government workers are as efficient and secure as possible? And that is a very high bar to try to do with our government workers in some cases.
Yeah.
Especially for politicians.
It's a great question, and it depends on what the specific needs of the government accounts are. So again, we go in and really look to assess what the needs are and make sure that we're setting up the right solutions. So access and devices being one piece, security being an absolute important requirement often as well. So working with, to make sure that the device mix is right, that the type of access is right, and I believe, again, today what you see is a lot of BlackBerries out there in the federal government sector, but we're seeing more and more requirements to support other OS, again, be that Android, be that iOS, be that Windows. And with that, there's more and more happening on the security and the mobile device management fronts in order to see that federal government customers are well served. And again, security is everything from what's going on at with encryption and security at the Linux kernel level to what type of remote counsel is available in order to manage a fleet of users that are out there in the marketplace. And frankly, there's a lot of work going on right now with the federal government and with others out there that provide mobile device management to see really kind of what directions that the government will go. Again, they have certified good for email security. That's right. You did interview Dell. There is there's work that Dell has done in providing an MDM type of solution. There's other MDM solutions that are under consideration by the federal government. So some of these things are works in progress, and we consider it our role to really understand customers' needs and either provide service directly or bring in the right partners that are able to meet those different requirements or different criteria that the federal government agency or department would set.
So let's define MDM for a second before we move on.
Sure. Well, I define MDM as mobile device management, and that's everything from security on devices to, and again, it depends on the different provider for what that stack looks like. It can certainly be an application store and management of an application store that's specific to only affording the applications that an entity would want their users able to access and able to utilize on their device. It can be malware detection. It can be the ability to remotely wipe sensitive data off of a device in the event that that device is lost or falls into the wrong hands. So really a very wide array of services that can fall under that mobile device management category, but also some very sound solutions that are out there in the marketplace, certainly for federal government customers as well as enterprise and private industry.
Now, does T-Mobile provide these services, or do you contract them out to other providers like the Profit Lines and so forth of the world?
Well, Profit Line I see mostly as an expense management company. I don't see them quite as much in the in the mobile device management world, but we productize Good, for example, so it's part of our rate plans. We have subject matter expertise in-house to support Good. That's also the case with BlackBerry. If you look at Deutsche Telekom, we have a relationship also with Mobile Iron, which is a leading MDM out there, and we're also actively working now within our own product group and with some partners on other things that we'll be productizing here over the near term. And we also have other active working relationships in place with companies like Afaria as well, which is the SAP MDM solution, and is a very good one also.
You know, our editors, and most of the editors pretty much anywhere in the tech industry, have pretty well written off BlackBerry, but you've mentioned them quite a bit. Is BlackBerry still alive? Are we seeing the end of RIM and BlackBerry? Do you think that it, you know, is just in decline in its legacy, or do they still have some legs?
Well, I believe that because of the customer base that they've built up, I wouldn't want to write Research in Motion off and say that, hey, you know, they have no legs. I believe that they do have legs. And then if you look in the federal government space, for example, if you look at the number of users that are out there out there with smartphones, with converged devices, again, the vast majority of those today is BlackBerry. What that will look like a few years from now will, you know, I believe will change materially as we see other OS come into the segment, as we've seen in the private sector. But I think it's much too early to write RIM off, given the size of the base and the number of users that they actively support in the marketplace.
So do you think that they're moving mostly towards the world of legacy, and, you know, so people who've bought in with RIM now are staying with RIM, as opposed to the people who, you know, over time are going to move to Android or iOS or whatever might come in the future?
Well, again, I wouldn't want to write RIM off yet and say that, hey, they are going to, you know, become non-relevant. You know, when I look at their cash position, when I look at you know, the PE ratio of it as a stock, and talk to people over there, they're very committed. I would also share, in this, you know, from my own opinion, and I think also shared by many, is that they have their work to do in terms of especially what the web experience on a RIM device looks like compared to some of the other OS that are out there. Everything, to my understanding, they're absolutely committed to that. And again, it depends on what the user needs are. If you look at email and you look at PIM, there's been some things that I'm sure that they're not happy about that have happened here over the last year in terms of, in terms of what some of the public statements have been and how they're being viewed by some in the marketplace. But again, I wouldn't write them off yet. Does that answer your question, though, David?
It does. I mean, one of the reasons I'm digging into this, I mean, this is not, I know, the subject that we agreed on in our conversation, but you know this stuff, you know, is that there was a time, I mean, I was the editor of Palm Power, and I loved my Trio. I mean, that was my favorite phone. And, you know, today, obviously, nobody is going to be carrying a Palm Trio because Palm itself is pretty well gone. And, you know, we saw the writing on the wall for that 3 or 4 years before it began to have its long slip into winter.
Right.
You know, and we're seeing the writing on the wall with BlackBerry, but those of us who are in the press and not on the ground with users as much as you are can't really tell whether or not we're sort of, you know, making up rumors of their death being premature, or whether their fundamentals are actually really quite good and they're just not as sexy as they used to be. And so, because I have the opportunity to talk to you, and because you're looking at this in a real world use of where BlackBerry is used best, I'm really trying to just get a feel for, you know, in 2016, is this company going to be around, and should we consider it as still having a chance, or is it really, you know, it's just gonna be a slow migration off of it? And obviously, I know you probably have a business relationship that you can't, you know, none of us want to naysay any company that's trying really hard, but I'm just trying to get a feel for really what your perspective is on that particular fascinating story.
Yeah, you know, when I look at smartphone usage, you know, traditionally it's been about email and it's been about PIM. You know, that's really kind of the history. And as web browsing, as access to other data in a corporate or in a government environment has become more relevant, as info sharing has become more relevant, as overall web experience has become more important. These are areas where RIM, in order to maintain or grow share, will have to effectively compete with the other solutions and offerings that are out in the marketplace. So I think that we'll have to wait and see kind of how they perform, but I would not write them off yet.
Cool. I'm sure you saw that relatively scary chart that shows that, those of us who are older use email, and those of us that are younger tend not to use email anymore.
Right.
And so that becomes kind of interesting because, my generation, I live for email probably to the degree that it's a pathology. But, people who are in their 20s never check email. They're all Facebook and Twittering and whatever the heck that they're doing. And as we move that group of people into government and into other forms, the sort of paradigm of how these devices and what these systems do change as well. So, it's one of my big concerns is, as a government guy, is where Facebook fits into the mess of government and these walled gardens, and how, we can track it and we can archive it and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, one, I agree with you that if we look at people coming into the workforce today, there's a lot less liking of email and much greater interest and usage of other medium, be that social medium like Twitter and Facebook. But also, we even see it here at T-Mobile that when we set up electronic community areas, kind of, again, that you use the term walled garden, which I think is a good one, that those types of environments are readily embraced. I'll share my own opinion with you as someone that does, supports teams that are actively, doing businesses. I don't see email completely going away when you're doing things like, negotiating a contract or getting, key information to people. I think that there will remain a place for email. That said, I believe that there, are other forms of communication that are sometimes faster and also often more rich in terms of what the experience will be. And I think we've seen some of those, but I think there's many more to come. And when we look at it, something like a Facebook today, for example, one of the things that really intrigues and interests me is seeing kind of how those platforms evolve over the next few years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, to many people, email is a chore. It's like, I gotta work on my email. And most people tend to like checking their Facebook. It's sort of like dipping into a river of news as opposed to having to process everything that's in there. Now I'm a little different because I really don't want to know what anybody's doing on Facebook. I really prefer not knowing where they went shopping or what they bought or what they like, but a lot of people seem to find that much easier to track than, oh God, I've got 1,000 messages I have to get through before I can get to go home.
Yeah, I think that's right. I also think that where business is concerned, there are things that, where sometimes it's, I think, there's a tendency for people to look at those platforms, and myself being one of them, love looking at, pictures and getting updates and seeing video streams of friends and family and keeping up with what they're doing. I think that doesn't remove the need for business to be done out in the marketplace, again, whether it's the private sector or whether it's government. And so I don't know that those platforms meet all of the, yet. What gets covered by traditional email, even when it does make my blood pressure go up.
Yeah, there is that. And plus, of course, anytime anybody posts a single cat video that links to YouTube, I am gone for 2 hours. I mean, it's uncontrollable and dangerous. So I try to stay away when I have a deadline. I don't know what it is. Anyway, so T-Mobile is pretty much the only character that hasn't been drinking the iPhone Kool-Aid. Do you think iOS is less suited for government work, and what mobile OS do you think is best for government communications?
Well, that's a great question. We do see, iOS being deployed by, some government entities today, and it's certainly not for me to disparage iPhone or iOS or iPad. These are all very good products. And I would tell you that, in the right business relationship, we would love to have the iPhone here at T-Mobile as well. So we'll see how that develops. with that, my strong belief is that it really is a function of qualification to understand for a different user, or a different role or responsibility, different job, what device and what OS is best suited to meet their needs. So certainly see users that are reasonably happy to greatly satisfied, with the Android product that's out there. That's certainly the case with RIM. I'm very excited about some of the things, some of the developments that we're seeing with Windows Mobile as well. So I think that it really depends on the needs and the preferences of the end users. But I'm looking at the development of these OSs in ways that I think really benefit the marketplace and provide greater choice. And in the realm of security, I think solutions are getting better and better there too. So it's an exciting era that we're in, where there is much more choice and greater functionality and greater benefit that end users can derive from wireless.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It was bizarre the other day. I tried to watch a Netflix in the car while waiting for my wife, who was going in to a clothing store for a few minutes. And I'm sitting there with my crappy 3G connection, and I'm able to watch a Star Trek episode in the car. And it was, every so often, I grew up in a day. My first computer was punch cards. I mean, I programmed punch cards for a living for my first gig. And coming to the point where you can sort of see this streaming dynamically of video off of Netflix, it's not flying cars, but you do feel like it's the future, and you're like, okay, I think I'm actually in the future. That's weird. And you notice that sometimes it seems it shows up in odd moments.
That's right. It's amazing to see the applications that have come front and center, over the last 5 years. When I came into the business, it was really about email, calendar, and voice services, and it's just been a phenomenal evolution of productivity tools and entertainment tools and other benefits that end users are able to derive without having to be plugged in somewhere into a computer. The mobile device really is the computer these days.
Yeah, it's absolutely astonishing. I want to switch gears for a second though, and talk about 4G or LTE or whichever variant you call it. I can't get high-speed mobile here in Central Florida. I can barely get 3G. But the idea of mobile service that's faster than my blazing broadband is intriguing. Do you see a day where it's ubiquitous and unmetered, where we can network at crazy speeds from anywhere in the country with, at a fixed fee like we do, like I'm doing right now through cable or DSL?
Yeah, I think that the wireless business is a very capital intensive business in terms of what it costs to bring in coverage. That said, there has been very, very steady progress. And if you look at T-Mobile, for example, in the US, our network footprint, where we offer speeds of 21 meg or up to 42 meg in certain sites, quite a lot of footprint out there today.
That just makes me feel warm, that just warms my heart whenever you say that.
So we will see how things develop, but I can tell you it's an industry where I think the carriers, and this isn't unique to T-Mobile, we really do want to see end users able to do things on the go and not be so worried about throughput. I think that if you look at the T-Mobile specific offerings, we're really engaging and bringing those rich throughput experiences out to end customers today, and looking to do so at price points that are very reasonable for our customers.
So what's the future of mobile computing? What's the future for mobile commuting for government workers? They're going to go around and get stuck in traffic. But what's the future for mobile computing for government workers? Are we going to see more Minority Report style communications devices and networks, or what?
Well, it's a great question, and I believe that within the federal government there are many that have varying perspectives on what the future of computing looks like, and especially where mobility is concerned. I'll share my own personal belief, and that is that with security developments that have happened, the ability to control devices, control what applications end users can have access to when it's a corporate liable device or when it's a government liable device, that there is more and more that can be done. If you look at the processing power, the ROM, the RAM on these devices, there's the ability to get a lot of work done and have applications and data, stored remotely, but at the same time have the benefit of end users able to, get in, do the info sharing, do the reporting back, do all the back office functions via their handhelds.
So let's try something different. This is going to be my last major question for you, and it's one that I'm just really curious about. Let's take where we are today, and if we were to look at where we are today, say compared to 1996, obviously we're much more mobile centric. We have smartphones that early on we didn't think were going to be in everybody's hands and have exploded. We have high speed networks. We have the ability to watch Star Trek on iPhones. Whatever it is. If we were to jump forward 15 years, and I don't want you to feel that I'm asking you to talk about confidential stuff, but just what will the world be like from a mobile device kind of space 15 years from now?
Well,
no challenge.
Well, I'll put on my futurist cap, which probably better than my own hairstyle, but I believe that the need for traditional PCs and laptops will go away, and I don't even think that that's going to take us 15 years. Again, when you look at computing power at the device, what the connectivity technology has looked like with 4G technology, I see a world happen very, very quickly where users are able to access all the personal content or all the work content that they need to at their fingertips, certainly wirelessly, and everything from commerce to all types of different work efficiencies to the personal networking that we talked about earlier. All of these things happening. And frankly, I don't think maybe I'm not enough of a futurist to tell you what other differences that would happen in 15 years from now. But I can tell you that there's just a major revolution that's happening today.
Yeah, I think it is. And I don't know if you out there could hear that or not, but I had lunch at Denny's, as I mentioned, and yeah, it just hit the microphone. So
I didn't hear that.
One of the disadvantages of having a microphone right here is people may have heard my lunch. Anyway, yeah, one of the things that I've been looking at as a question is this sort of consumerization of tech, and for Windows this becomes a real interesting concern. We were looking at a Windows photo app that was provided by Microsoft last night for something my wife wants to do for one of her hobbies, and it wouldn't allow us to choose a file. It only would allow us to use the files it thought it knew. And so we have this weird area where the consumerization is really great for people who don't have a lot of experience and for making things much easier, but the old school operating system that put power in the hands of people who have actual hard work to do, like this studio, for example, requires a tremendous amount of funky tech and couldn't be done with just iOS devices, although honestly I'm looking at you through a teleprompter that's off an iPad that's reflected into the screen. But do you think that we're also going to see a growth or a balance in sort of the power user components that are still going to be around, as well as these very end user oriented types of devices?
I do. I look at some of the OEMs that are out there and how they utilize Android today. As an example, and that is that oftentimes they're creating layers, in the UI that allow for a very good experience for someone who might not be so technically savvy, but at the same time affords them the opportunity that if they do need to fine-tune things that are much more specific, they're able to get into those within a layer or two in order to meet the needs that they have. And to me, this is always the balancing act of having a UI that is friendly and intuitive for users, as well as affording users the power to make the technical settings that they need in order to perform at what they're looking to accomplish.
You have been just the best sport ever. We set this up with talking about government security and communications and you've been willing to talk about everything related to carriers, including some hot button items. So in return for that, is there anything else you'd like to tell the ZDNet government viewers? Any final thoughts, anything that we haven't asked that you'd really like to discuss?
I guess maybe a shameless plug, and that is
Go
just
for
to
it.
say
You earned
that,
it.
thanks, David. And that is that, here at T-Mobile, we're absolutely have a large appetite and are enthusiastic to serve the government segment. Again, if you look at the solutions that we afford, and certainly traditional access, but the things that we can do in terms of things that aren't available from other carriers, like Wi-Fi voice, which we discussed, but certainly others in terms of who we are as an international company, and then the solutions that we bring ourselves, but also via our partner relationships that I really believe are best in class. And again, we're enthusiastic to certainly help in the government segment, as well as our enterprise and business and consumer customers. So it's really been a delight to have a chance to talk with you today.
It has been an absolute delight to talk to you as well. You have been a great sport, really informative. I think we've all learned a lot, gotten a much better perspective of what's going on. And I just really want to thank you for taking the time to do this, and for being as open and informative as you have been. It's great to talk to somebody who's really doing this, but it's also nice to have somebody who's willing to share really clearly and openly about what's going on in different places. So thank you.
My pleasure, David. Thanks again for taking time to talk with me today.
So that has been Frank Sickinger, Vice President of B2B, MNC, and Federal Government Sales at T-Mobile USA. I am David Gewirtz, and this is ZDNet Government. Thank you very much.